Going live.
We're live.
We're live.
Yes.
10
Welcome
cents.
to the 10 Cent Menu podcast.
Nice. We've landed again.
Yep, here we are.
All
So
right.
before we get started,
So today we're talking about building the ultimate menu management process. And I think there's a lot of elements to it. There's a lot of different components. We're going to try to give like the straight line A to B to C. What are the pillars that you need in place so you're managing your menu efficiently, affordably, staying on brand, getting these things on your tables, on your website, the most effectively way possible.
right.
All
So
right,
yeah, ready?
let's do it.
Get into it. All right. So number one, let's start. Let's begin this journey, right? As a restaurant owner, someone who has a menu that they're ready to update. The first thing that happens is, they decide that it's time to give this menu an overhaul. We're going to assume that your menu's already designed, that you already have it ready to go, and you've been using it for however long, and now you're ready to make some price changes, to knock off some unpopular items, and to add some new things that are trendy and cost effective, and you're excited about it. So what happens next?
Nice. So you have your you have your changes conceptually. You know where the business is going. You know how you're pivoting. Based on the seasonality or whatever it may be. Now we have to start the process of getting this menu updated. Um, and I think like when we're talking about an existing menu, we'll probably do a separate episode on creating a menu, from scratch. But when we're not reinventing the wheel, we're just trying to make updates to stay up with the trends. Really, the first thing is, where does this file live? Where does this menu live? And you have your emails going back and forth, and you have different file storage systems. But I think that's the first thing you really want to think about is how are you saving this menu or menus? Where are you saving them? How are you naming them? And who has access to them?
Right.
Because the second that you decide with your chef, or if you are the chef, the second you decide to update the menu, the first thing you're going to want to do is say, okay, where's the file? So Jenny, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about,
Yeah.
kind of that's more of your specialty is file storage and naming convention.
Right. So, obviously, like when you're ready to make updates to the menu, and we've gotten them all different kinds of ways. You'll probably take your hard copy menu, maybe mark it up, maybe make some notes, maybe open up a Word document. But once you're done, getting your first draft of edits made, you send it over to the person that has the working files of this designed menu. So normally that's a designer. Um, or someone with the design skills or design programs that has the ability to update your existing menu. Um, so, you know, often, you could email them or maybe meet with them in person, or somehow you're giving these changes to that person so that they can digest them, make the updates, and then the proofing starts. The proofing begins. Um, so I think that what's important in this area is obviously versioning. You want to keep your latest version on file. What we do is we'll keep at least one or two menus prior to the most recent one that you've updated, just in case you want to reference an old item, or a change that you had made previously. I think that can be very helpful when you're making new updates to menus. And Naming the file is very important as well. Making sure that they're organized within whatever folder structure you are using. You want to. It has to be easy for not only the designer to locate. Usually, the designer knows where they're keeping their files. But if there needs to be anybody else to access those files, it's important to have them accessible to more than one person. So that the naming the naming conventions that you follow and the way that you're organizing the folders with your files is a very intricate and important part of this whole menu management process. It keeps things, just categorized and easy to find.
Yeah. I think that that's a huge one. If you look at it in terms of like where are the pain points of managing a menu, if you have a designer who has a certain way of saving things that maybe makes sense to them, and then that person moves on, or it doesn't work out, and then the next person comes in and they have a different way of doing things, it can get out of control. So I think having a uniform way, that your restaurant or restaurant group actually saves and manages, and stores this stuff, so that when you bring in the new person, you say, look, this is how we save things. This is where it lives. So that way, it's not such a big deal if somebody does get replaced.
Yeah. And it could be very easy to when let's say the designer that you're using or the person that you're using update your menu is no longer able to do that for you anymore. And now, the handoff begins, right? The files are getting moved. Someone else is going to be working on them. They don't have everything that they need, or if there's confusion, or even if the programs aren't up to date, or, any of that, it can it's almost like you're starting from scratch again, so it just becomes part of a more efficient workflow when you have things, categorically saved and you follow a specific process, even though it becomes, it's a little extra work to do it this way, but it saves a lot of time down the line when you start introducing new people to the process and to the way that,
Yeah. And I think when you are in this mode where, okay, I have the updates to my menu, I want to get going, it's very time sensitive, because you need to coordinate, when these menus get updated with when you're buying food, and all that kind of the logistics behind it. So you don't want to lose a day or a week or a couple of weeks, trying to locate your files, or, trying to figure out where your menu is.
Background image, or if you don't have the font syncing up, or, any of those little things that isn't really, it causes a lot of time, extra time that's unnecessary, to make us, sometimes very small changes. It could take much longer if the proper assets aren't included. But yeah, so that's the file storage, and then the asset management and all that stuff. Moving on from there, we get into the proofing process, right? So the proof gets sent, and then changes are kind of communicated back and forth. And this has actually been a struggle that we've had for many years up until recently, where everybody sends things in differently, and everybody's, and then you get into trouble, like, you're sending me a change via email and then I miss it, or it's not clear, and now we're going back and forth, and now we're adding time to the production, and now it's kind of putting a hold on when you can get these menus out, because don't forget, we also have to get them printed, and that includes a whole nother set of days that it needs to run and be like put through the production line. So
yeah, I think, like, if you look at it in terms of a workflow, what is the workflow for submitting changes back and forth? And even if it is email, who is in charge? Because another thing that we've run into is multiple people from the organization sending changes in a variety of ways. Sometimes that might contradict each other. So I think centralizing the communication on the restaurant side, so that you have your one person. It's not to say that you won't need to print out a sample of the updated menu, go back to the chef and have more conversations. But I think the more you centralize the communication around one person, even if it is just email, you're going to see a lot quicker of a process to get that menu where it needs to be.
Exactly.
What we do is, we have a software that we use that actually sends you a link to the proof that you could then make changes on that platform. So that's a little bit more sophisticated than maybe, a restaurant might deploy in the very beginning. But that that was a result of us for years, playing the game back and forth with email and deciding we just needed some place for this menu to live and somewhere to have an official communication about the menu changes, because sometimes there might be unofficial communication where someone texts us or calls us or sends an email. But what we say, look, there's an official way to submit these changes and to approve these changes. So by creating that workflow, we draw a line in the sand between like creative kind of what are we going to do and actual updates and changes. And we find that being a little bit more rigid with that and having a more black and white process really keeps everybody on the same page. Who is the approver? Who is the person who's allowed to submit the changes and make the ultimate approval? And where does that happen? And again, if you're using email, that's fine. But one contact person, one email address, and have that person be really the one voice for the menu update, because that will, that can tend to push things back as well.
Right. Yeah, no, that's very important. And the ability to, now, which is very nice, we have our platform and there's a big green approve button. So when you're all set, everything looks good, you press that button and now you get sent all the final files. And, if we're taking care of the print production, then that order immediately moves into the print queue. And that's just the way that we handle things. Obviously, like if we have customers that don't use us for printing, it still works the same way. They hit the approve button, they get sent the final print files, they can send it to whatever printer that they want to use. There's definitely a benefit in having us print it also, just in case, there's any issues with artwork and well, actually what the main benefit I think there is that you can kind of give us a date of like, well, this is the day that I want to launch these menus. We know when we have to get that item approved in order to get it into production so that the production team can get it printed and shipped to you and have it delivered on time and, according to when you're getting your POS updated and all that.
I think also like that approve button is huge because it is the ultimate signal. It's the ultimate like, okay, the menu is now approved. And I can't tell you how many times in the past the menu, and this is the other way around it, the menu is approved. It is, but there's a drop off in communication where maybe the designer didn't realize that it was actually done. There was no handoff. So, I think file storage and access is huge in terms of the menu management process, but also the handoff between the designer and the restaurant, and then either the restaurant and the print or the designer and the print, because, okay, well, is it approved? And, how many do you want? And, where is it shipping? Is it shipping to corporate? Is it shipping to multiple locations? How many do you need? So there's those little touches in between the design, the approval, and then the print production where the process can really fall apart. So,
right.
And whether you print them in-house or you have your designer is separate from your printer, you really want to iron out that approval process / handoff so that everybody is on the same page. Even if you're using email, you say, once I approve this job and I tell you approved, then the designer automatically knows what to do. Mm-hmm. Then the designer can send it to the printer directly, or the designer sends me print-ready files, and then I send it to the printer. So there's more than one way to do it, but having that workflow ironed out is going to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. I mean, it's important for the designer to know when something is approved so that we can get whoever needs the final files. That we both just work so long and hard on getting this to the point where it's ready to deploy and shown. And if we don't know that it's approved, or the designer doesn't know that it's approved, then it can sit, it just sits in Dropbox or wherever you're storing the files until someone gets angry and, oh, where's my files? Like, oh, okay, so it's a very
we're updating the data. Mm-hmm. It's all about the data that is on the design, and that data needs to be updated in more than one place. So we design it in a design context, but now it has to be updated in print and it has to be updated on the website and POS and other places. So that becomes now the playbook for the future. And the way we do it, is the designer a lot of times will be in charge of the print facilitation and also the web update. And that's a very interesting place too, because now you have these three different channels: the digital design, the print, and then the web. And so it's three times the amount of work. So by us having the designer in charge of confirming approval, placing the print order, and then tracking the print so that when the order hits the tables and it's shipped, then the designer knows to update the website. And that's another place where a lot of issues, arise, is the website doesn't get updated, and now you're playing defense because the pricing on the website was different than what's on the POS, and you can run into all sorts of problems that way.
Right. Or on the flip side, you're not ready to launch the new menu until next week, but the file got approved and now it's sent to printing and the order is done and it's shipped to you, but you're holding on to it for a few days. But if we don't know that, or if the design team, whoever's updating your website, doesn't know that, they're going to assume that okay, well, now it's ready to get updated. So there's definitely still some communication that needs to be had if there's any plan of attack when it comes to the menu. When are you getting these out? When are the servers going to be trained on the new items to share with your guests? And when are you going to get your items in and the POS updated? Because that's the time when I think really that's when your menu is launched. It's not just when it's approved; it's when it's like out there on the tables, ready to be served.
Yeah, and I think it's important too for restaurants, going back to this workflow, to when it comes to rolling out a menu with the POS, sometimes I know you might want to get them printed, hold on to them, have a meeting with the wait staff, educate them on the updated menu before updating the POS and the website. So it's there's more than one way to do it, but if you do it the same way every time, just like the recipes of the things in your restaurant, it's made with the same ingredients, it's made the same way every time, you're going to have a better result. And you're going to be able to project as well. You're going to say, okay, well, if we have a staff meeting on Thursday or Wednesday, we'll have the staff meeting. I'll make sure that I have the printed menus by Tuesday. I'll give the web person 2 days to update the site, and then we'll go live on the POS on Thursday. And everyone wins. So I think that handoff between design, print, and web is a major pitfall for a lot of restaurant groups, especially if your designer and your web person and your printer are three completely different people, organizations, different workflows. You're going to have to now be the general contractor of this project and make sure that you get the files from the designer and send it to the website person so that they update it and also send them to print. So it can be a very high touch place if you don't have a uniform workflow worked out.
Right. Yep. Yeah. That's good. Well stated.
Yeah. So it's all about the transition. It's in the very beginning, can I access these files, or can the person that needs to make the changes access the files? That's where you can lose some ground. Once the file is approved, the handoff between design and print and web is another place where you can lose some ground and you can lose a couple of days. And again, it's time sensitive. So if you're losing 2-3 days and then another 2-3 days, and then it's the weekend, another 2-3 days, you don't want this thing to take 3-4 weeks for you to roll out. Prices change, your prices have gone up. You don't want to have any discrepancies between your POS and what's happening on the tables and online. Those are definitely the pitfalls of a menu management process that can go bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think just having those people in place already, having the team there, makes you having to update your menu, not necessarily so much of a chore or something to dread. It's an exciting thing. You're like, okay, we're rolling out some new things. You get excited about it. Like it's just part of running a restaurant. That
There's
part
also,
can be something that is, can work seamlessly for you as well.
yeah. And there's also accountability there. If the process did break down and the menus didn't get updated as quickly as you wanted, you can apply, what happened to the workflow and figure out where the problem was. Was it sitting at the print shop for 3 days?
Mhm.
Did the designer not send you the file? Did the web person drop the ball and they didn't update
Yeah.
it? Where are those vulnerabilities, so that you can either have a conversation with the person that's responsible and accountable for that, or you could make the necessary adjustment and find someone else who's going to be the right player for the team.
Right. Yeah. So that's it.
That's it. All right. So until next
Yeah.
time.
I think that's a good overview. We'll get into each, because we can go on and on about all of these topics. I'm trying to not get too deep.
I think a rough sketch
Any
of
one thing. Yeah.
a rough sketch of the process
Mhm.
and where it goes wrong a lot of the times. I think if I was to give restaurant owners one takeaway from this podcast, it would be to, try to apply what we've just kind of put together for you, and wear those glasses and look through that lens at how you've been updating your menu. And I bet you'll see pretty quickly and pretty easily where these vulnerabilities are. And I bet they're in more than one place. So, it kind of just gives you a new lens to look through. The process of implementing and documenting and getting the procedures in place is for another time. But really understanding, where the process can go wrong for a lot of people and what you need in place is important.
Definitely.
All right. Until next time,
Until next time. Happy Tuesday.
we're out.
We're out.